Thank you. Please stand by. You will now be placed into conference.
Hello, I'm Jacques, an education specialist with the National FFA Organization. Today I'd like to guide you through a process called prototyping. This prototyping experience was initially conducted at the 2017 National Agricultural Education and FFA in-service. However, we're making this presentation available to you so that you can prototype your state officers' learning and development as needed throughout the next few years as we look to implement this new state officer leadership continuum beginning in the spring of 2018. In order to prototype the state officer continuum, you'll need a few things. First, you'll need to compile a general state officer calendar of events for your state association. This calendar should be sorted by months, and dates should be as approximate but as solidified as possible. For example, we know that things will fluctuate year to year, but in order to truly prototype this experience as best we can, we should try and solidify one date for each item, even though it may be tentative from 2017 to 2018, and again from 2018 to 2019. So you want a calendar that's as firm as it can possibly be. With that, you also want a calendar that has the big rocks of your state officer's year. For example, any training experiences that they participate in, either offered by National FFA or sanctioned by your state FFA association. You'll want any activities that they're responsible for facilitating, such as FFA camp, chapter leadership training, green hand training, chapter officer training, and state FFA convention. You'll also want some experiences that they may participate in but are not directly responsible for facilitating. For example, a Farm Bureau annual meeting, your state FFA fair, a state Ag Expo. The calendar does not need to include individually scheduled events, such as chapter visits or foundation meetings. Anything that you might receive a request for a specific state officer to attend, those items need not be included in this calendar. However, you may think about including seasons, such as chapter banquet season or goodwill tour season. Things that typically, for several weeks at a time, officers might find themselves doing the same activity over and over again. An example of this calendar is on your screen, and our staff can certainly provide other example calendars if they'd be helpful. Once you have this calendar, though, you're ready to begin the prototyping experience. On the state staff homepage of FFA.org, you should find the State Officer Management tab. Within that tab, you'll find a zip file for prototyping materials. That zip file will contain two PDF documents. One is called Prototyping Cutouts, and one is called Prototyping Timeline. We'll open the Prototyping Cutouts tab first. There, you'll find a document that has the images that are also reflected on the screen here. The images are separated by dotted lines, and you'll want to cut out each of those images along the dotted lines so that you have 14 unique pieces on the table in front of you. Go ahead and put those 14 pieces aside and find the prototyping timeline document, which will resemble the image that you now see on the screen. It's 1 year separated into 4 quarters, or 12 months. Each of those 12 months is then subdivided into 4 weeks. Go ahead and print off and prepare both of these items, the prototyping cutouts and the prototyping timeline. You can pause this video and then resume playback once you have all the materials needed. Go ahead and pause the video now. Great, welcome back. Now that we've got these materials, let's begin prototyping. First and foremost, take that prototyping timeline and have that squarely in front of you. You'll notice that the actual months are not filled in, so we'll want to do that first. We'll fill in month 1 as the month that our state convention happens. For example, if I were state staff in an association whose convention began in April, I would put April as month 1, and then fill in the remaining 11 months of that year accordingly. Go ahead and pause the presentation to do that now. Great. Now that we've accomplished that, let's take a look at some of those pieces that we have off to the side. Taking some of these cutouts, we'll plot 3 of them first on our timeline. First, find the piece that says officer, election, and retirement. In my state, that may happen at state convention, which takes place the 3rd week of April. So using a piece of tape, I would have fixed the officer, election, and retirement piece over the 3rd week of April. These next 2 experiences, which are similar size, are actually dictated by the National FFA Organization. So I'll find the DC experience piece and affix that on the 4th week of July. Lastly, I'll find the National FFA Convention and Expo piece and affix that on the 4th week of October. Feel free to pause the video while doing so now. Wonderful. Next, we're going to identify where the kickoff event should be. And ideally, we want our kickoff event to fall within 30 days of officers' election and retirement. In my case, I might put this kickoff event the 1st week of May, because that's when timing is most conducive to my state association. Place that sticker within 30 days of your officer's election and retirement, and if need be, draw an arrow to indicate specifically which week that will fall in. Once you've done that, begin adding some of the big rocks from your calendar directly onto your timeline by writing them in the approximate week in which they fall. For example, I've plotted 3 specific rocks here. State Fair, which in my state might happen the 3rd week of August. Green Hand Conference, which is traditionally held in my state the last weekend of September. And Chapter Banquet Season, which begins the 3rd week of February. Go ahead and pause the video now as you enter all of your big rocks from your calendar into this timeline. You can resume playback once you've done transferring those items from the calendar into the timeline. Great, your timeline probably looks much more full than the one on the screen in front of you. But for the purposes of this activity, I'm going to leave it to just these 3 activities on our state's timeline. Next, you'll find 8 little pieces. These are the smallest of the pieces that you've cut out. And you'll notice that you have 2 sets of 4 different icons. First, we'll take each of the 4 icons, and we'll place them next to the experiences in which state officers will use those skills for the first time. For example, I've just placed the speech bubble icon next to the state fair. The speech bubble icon represents conversation skills. And in my state association, state officers run a number of displays, demonstrations, and other activities at State Fair where they're responsible for having conversations not only with other ag audiences, but with the non-ag public as well. And so conversation skills are a skill set that really are valuable to me at my state fair. And that's the first time that officers may use those skills for a variety of audiences. I might do the same with the puzzle pieces and the gears, which represent respectively team dynamics and effective workshops. Our state officers in my state plan their Green Hand Conference together as a team, and so I need that team to be able to perform effectively in order to execute Green Hand Conference. State officers in my state are also responsible for facilitating the content of Green Hand Conference, and so I've placed the effective workshops icon there as well, because typically that's when state officers will be doing the first round of developing and delivering their own curriculum to FFA members. I've got one icon left, and that's public speaking skills. In our state officers often use those skills during chapter banquet season as they bring keynotes and other remarks to chapter banquets around our state. And since we really don't use that skill until chapter banquet season begins, I'm going to place that icon next to chapter banquet season. I've now used one set of those 4 small icons. I still have another set of those 4 icons remaining, as well as 2 yellow stickers called in-state experiences. I'm going to grab those 2 yellow stickers and place them on the timeline, thinking about where I want training for the 4 skills I've just identified. For example, I might place one of those yellow in-state event stickers in August, and that's where I would train officers for the skills that they're going to use in August and September: conversation skills, team dynamics, and effective workshops. I'll place that in-state event where I have the room in my calendar to facilitate it, and then I'm going to take the small icons and put them within that in-state event so I know what content is being taught during that experience. You can probably guess that I'm going to do the same exact thing with my last remaining icon, which is public speaking skills. And for this one, I might place that towards the end of January because that's where I have the time to facilitate that experience. Go ahead and pause the video as you select how your in-state experiences will be built and place them on your timeline. You can resume playback once you're satisfied. Great, welcome back. Now we have a holistic view of what our state officers' training and development will look like throughout their year. This is in conjunction with the new State FFA Officer Continuum, which really does allow state associations to pick and choose items and customize their year so that training is developed and delivered in a time that is necessary to the needs of your state association. No more are we trying to build experiences around a calendar. Instead, we're trying to build a calendar around experiences. If you need to learn some more information about the kickoff event, the in-state event, the DC experience, the convention electives, or the capstone event, which is not yet shown on this diagram, you can do so by visiting the FFA.org State Staff homepage, clicking on the State Officer Management tab, and then reviewing the items for the 2018 State Officer Continuum or the Continuum Revision Report, which will also detail the process for how we got here, the 11 focus areas, and the measures of success. If you have any questions or want to discuss your state's prototype in greater detail with national staff, please email stateofficers@ffa.org. We'd be happy to assist you at any time in building or refining your state prototype. Please know that in late summer, early fall of 2017, our staff will be asking to see a copy of your prototype so that we can help build your training year for the 2018-2019 state officers as we look to fully implement this continuum. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our team. We look forward to being a helpful consultant process in this as we implement this continuum.
The chairperson has disconnected. The conference will now end.